Now I am sitting in the Xpander and we are waiting for the convoy to take us out of this place to go to lunch. So we just went into a kind of a fishing pond, and here's where they told us that the Xpander now has 20 mm higher ground clearance, which is very good. I'm sure it works very well in Indonesia, where the roads are a lot rougher and more like what we just went through here. So now the Xpander has 225 mm ground clearance for Malaysia. Very good, especially if you go to the Dusun and for East Malaysia. So this is definitely a good point. The 225 mm ground clearance is as good as many SUVs. I think some of the pickup trucks only have like 230. We're going to have a little bit of winding roads for us to check out the handling. Of course, it will be at a slower speed than what we are used to on Genting Highlands, but it's good enough because this is a family MPV, and this is, I said SUV by mistake. So it's a family MPV, and I think for family use it should be good lah, because this is what you call an entry level vehicle with a 1.5 liter engine. Okay, so what we know, I've driven the old one and it was quite good. So in terms of powertrain, this one retains the same 1.5 liter, 105 PS and 141 Newton meters of torque. And in the presentation this morning, they told us that the shock absorbers have now got a bigger size. So that means that handling will be more consistent, because with bigger oil capacity, the shock absorber will retain, or rather will maintain its heat better, so it won't heat up. So over a long distance, you are likely to get consistent performance from the rear suspension. So what we are told is that the rear shockers are now bigger, and the old car handled very well. I'm quite impressed. I was quite impressed with the old Xpander handling, and this one I believe will be better, because another change is from 16-inch to 17-inch wheels. So definitely that will improve the ride, and which I feel is okay, and it will also improve the grip and handling around corners. But anyway, if you have any issues with the handling, this car comes with traction control and stability control, so it should be okay lah if you make a mistake. Okay, we'll go back, we'll sit in the rear 2 rows to check out the vehicle. And right now what we're going to do is we're going to check out the driving feel. Okay, so the 4-speed gearbox is carried over from the previous model, or previous model, yes. And so whilst it is not the best configuration for a vehicle like this, I would think that maybe a 5-speed or a 6-speed would be more suited, because with 4 speeds there's always a gap between. 4-speed gearbox, something that is very archaic, you might say. But I suppose if a 4-speed gearbox is cheap, then it keeps the cost of the vehicle down. Having said that, this vehicle is selling at 99,000 or 109,000 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So this, the one that we are in, is the Plus with all the bells and whistles. Yeah. And so this is the 109,000 ringgit version. And in terms of driving feel, it's good. The leatherette seats and all, they hold you quite well, and suspension has improved. So despite the increased height, the handling seems to be okay lah at the type of speeds that we are driving. And earlier Uncle Lips drove the car with a little bit of exuberance, and it still felt okay, although it did scare me a little bit. So this type of car should be driven at this type of speeds, and it will be very nice and comfortable. So Suhana, what do you think? Is comfortable now?
Very comfortable.
Very comfortable, right? Uncle Lips, okay or not?
Yeah, so far so good.
So far so good. and you feel that the car is very stable, it handles very well. So most cars of this type of size, they may tend to be a little bit soft, but this ride is firm. So I would say that it's on the firm side of comfortable, and sometimes it's not about soft that makes it comfortable. Yeah, it has to have the right give and the right suppleness in order for it to take the corner well. Maybe you need to minimize the body roll. Well, the fact that it's 17-inch for a basic MPV, it's already a plus point lah. I'm talking about the wheel size. Okay, so there is it's a 4-speed gearbox. There is no pedal shifter, and is there a manual mode? No, there's no manual. Yes, there is. You have to shift down. It has L2D. Yeah, so you can get to first gear, which is L, then second is 2, then D is number 3, and then overdrive button is on the gear shift itself, and that puts you onto OD. Yeah, so that's the 4th speed. So basically it's a 3-speed gearbox with a 4th electronically engaged gear. Yeah, so that's the OD, and that is what gives you a higher than 1 ratio to give you the fuel economy. So we are taking a left. Now I'm trying to figure out, signal stop is on the right hand side. Okay, this is the first time I'm driving the Xpander after a very, very long time. Yeah, the last time I drove the Xpander, it was to go up the Fraser's Hill with Malai Chong as my co-driver, because they kitted that car up like a rally car. Yes, they do have such an Xpander rally car in Indonesia, but it's probably got an Evo engine inside, yeah, and a 4-wheel drive system in this vehicle. But for the Malaysian one, they just dressed up the base Xpander, and because it looked like a rally car, we drove it like a rally car with Malai Chong, a professional co-driver, at the navigator's seat. Okay, so now we are climbing up the hill. So does it have enough power to climb up the hill? Well, honestly speaking, it's all about gear ratios and gearing. So if you have the right gear ratios and the right final drive, you will have enough torque. So this vehicle actually can climb up the hill, not a problem. So will it climb up a hill with 7 people? Well, we now have 3 people, and another 4 people will add about 300-320 kilos maximum. And based on this gearing that I can feel the power with 3 people, I think with 7 people it will still be okay. Might be a little bit heavier, but it will climb this hill without any problem. So like I said, it's about gearing. Handling, I'm driving at this speed. We are following the convoy, and I don't think there's any issue. It seems to be as good, if not better, than the old one.
A few moments later.
Okay, so we actually went for lunch in a little farm inside here. Very beautiful place. And now we are actually driving on a very, very small road, and in some places it's a bit rough. And here is where you will appreciate the 225mm ground clearance of the Xpander. So this is a place where there are durian plantations, and basically a kampung road lah. And there are places where the road deteriorates, and then you get potholes and all. So 17-inch wheels, 225mm of ground clearance actually helps. And also the stiffer shock absorbers and bigger capacity also is a good point. Okay, we are back onto a bit of civilization, and the road is, I think this is the Hulu Langat to Jelebu road, and we now can barrel along at a fair speed. So it's also another chance to check out the handling of the car at higher speed. Okay, so knowing that this is what you call entry level MPV, the noise level is okay lah, acceptable. So there is some noise, but well, this is entry level car. Yeah. But in terms of handling, let me check it out. Yeah. So we always have to be careful because there is oncoming traffic, and we have to take that into account. So far so good lah. Remembering that it's about 1.7 meters tall, so it is a bit shorter than it is wide. I think it's 1750 mm wide, and in terms of the height is 1730. Yeah, so a little bit under square. And with the extra ground clearance, I think the handling is, compared to the outgoing model, I think it's equivalent lah. So where the extra height became a disadvantage, the bigger tires helped a little bit on the grip side. Okay, that was a pretty sharp parabolic bend, and I think the Xpander did quite okay lah. Considering that these are actually the roads that I'm not very familiar with. Well, there was a bit of a tightening turn there, but brakes are okay. I brake a little bit to stabilize the car so it can take the corner. So it's good to always tap on the brakes to shift the weight to the front, and that will give you the grip, the initial grip to carry you through the corner. Okay, so here is where the 4-speed gearbox shows a little bit of its shortcomings, because from 4th, which is quite a high ratio, supposed to give you overdrive and also fuel economy, then you shift down to 3rd, which is actually quite far away from the 4th gear, and so there's a big increase in the RPM, and that can affect the fuel consumption in the long run. So if you want to get good fuel consumption, then you must not accelerate so hard and let it build up the speed gradually, like what I did now. So you can see that the handling is quite okay lah, considering all things considered. Yeah, of course it's not like a sports car. It is a MPV, but I would say that for an MPV, it's quite acceptable and okay for handling. There's a dog on the road. So the way to drive this 4-speed gearbox is to accelerate in a linear fashion so that you don't end up making the gearbox kick down to 3rd. You hold it, okay, that was 3rd, and now it's in 4th. Okay, so we are sitting in the back of the Xpander. It's got a width of 1705 mm, but it looks pretty wide. You can actually seat 3 people quite well. there is a center divider here, which is quite good. So if you sit 3 people, there is enough space, and if you want a bit more comfort, you put the center armrest down, and it's pretty nice. You can have your drink holder here, and in terms of leg room, is really good. Uncle Leaps is sitting in front of me, and I allowed him to slide back about 2 or 3 inches further back than the driver, who is Suhana. But of course, she's sitting very far forward. And for me, there's still plenty of leg room. I have about 4 or 5 inches of knee room, and it's quite comfortable. Now the rear seats, they are for this high spec Xpander Plus. It comes with leatherette seats, and you get 2 headrests. The center passenger doesn't get a headrest. Only the left and right passengers get the headrest. And there is a little bit of reclining allowable on the bottom here. You can recline the seat somewhat. This is the extent of reclining, and here is the seat when it's straight up. Yeah. So for those who are more advanced in age, you might want to sit straight up, because then you feel actually more comfortable. But if you want to, say, like, lie down during a long journey and take a rest, then the reclining position is quite nice, but you got to slouch a little bit forward. Yeah, because otherwise your back will be a bit arched. But you can find yourself a nice comfortable position, and you can sort of like lie down and enjoy your trip. Headroom, there's plenty of headroom, and then there's a aircon blower here for the back part of the vehicle. The aircon blower has 4 speeds. Yeah, so this is the maximum speed, and you get lots and lots of cool air. We are just running on speed number 2 now. And for the back passenger, there's also pockets for your magazines or your handphone. Yeah, you can put 2 handphones here, and at the back you have 2 USBs, one normal USB and one USB-C. Okay, so the third row is a folded seat, and I think if you get a lot of leg room in the middle, then the third row will get a little bit less. But for the third row, you get another power socket there, and also you have your drink holder. Let me see. Oh, okay. So the second row seat can be slided forward. I just slided the smaller part because this is 60-40 split. Let's look at the middle one. Yes, also can be slided, but I cannot reach there lah. Okay, let me try. Yeah. I have to change seat. Okay, let's see whether the middle, this part can be slided. Okay. Yes. So the second row is split 60-40, and it can be slided forward. So earlier I said there's a lot of leg room, right? Well, you have to allocate lah. If there are passengers in the third row, then you may need to slide the second row a little bit forward to give the third row a bit more room. But if there's no passenger, you can slide it really back. So dimensionally, the Xpander is the same as the previous one. So if you're used to the previous one, you know it is a 7-seater. But as I said, there's always limitation to the space. And if you want to have everybody comfortable, you may have to give up a little bit here and there, but that's how it is, yeah? All right, so that's the back seat. Okay, so I'm sitting in the rear seat, and so this is a 7-seater, so it is 2 in the front, 3 in the middle, and 2 at the back, because there are only 2 seat belts at the back. And yes, I was right. If you want to have a bit of leg room, you have to slide the middle seat a little bit more forward. And right now, I think the back seat can only take very small size people. 164 cm, that's my height, and I can just barely fit inside. And the front seat has to be put a bit straight lah. If it reclines, then it will touch my knees. So you can put an average size 2 people at the back, and it will just fit. So this is a just fit, yeah, for 7 people, and the luggage space at the back becomes very, very small. So you can put at the most 2 overnight bags and maybe a little satchel or so, and that's about it. So you might say that if you want to sit 7 people, you probably need a roof rack and maybe a roof box for luggage. 5 people with luggage, 4 people with luggage is okay, or even 6 people, and you put, so if you put one side down, then you can have a bit more luggage space here, and you sit 6 people. 6 people will be just about right, because then you have this space. Yeah, headroom at the back is still okay, but the leg room is a bit on the tight side. Still, it's a 7-seater if you need a 7-seater lor. In terms of road noise, because the suspension is very near here, so at the back here, the road noise is a bit louder than in the middle or in the front. But then, well, this is what you call entry-level MPV, so it doesn't have that great soundproofing. Insofar as aircon for the 3rd row, the blower in front is quite powerful, and so you will still get some aircon here. So at the back here, there is no USB port, only a power socket on one side. So we've driven the car, we've sat in the middle row and we sat in the back row. So overall, I think this is still a good car. Whether the price is high or not, well, that's a function of the taxes, duties that this vehicle has to pay coming in. Yeah, it's fully imported, it's not locally assembled. So the price versus spec and all, you have to do the comparison, because there are many other vehicles in this category that are priced very similar or even a little bit lesser. But in terms of whether the car can perform, yes, it's good. And in terms of handling, it's good. And do I think that the improved suspension works? Yes, it does. And do I think the extra 20 mm increase in the ground clearance to make it 225 mm is good? Yes, it's good. So there are positive points about the vehicle. And the last one is, of course, the comparison between the 4-speed gearbox and the CVT. Well, CVT will be noisy when you push it in a lower gear, and the same thing with the 4-speed transmission. When you climb up a hill, it will be in a lower gear and it will make the very similar amount of noise. And the noise is actually not from the gearbox, guys. The noise is from the engine, which is struggling because it is only a 1.5 after all. Okay, so that's my say on this car. Hope you like my video, and thanks for being with us. Until we meet again in the next video. Bye bye everybody.